Hey there, folks. I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Joining me today for this special episode is my good friend and YouTube pooper, Daniel Guzman.
Good to be back here again, Josh.
So, if you're wondering why I brought you here today, it's because it's still the year of mice films. If you may recall, about 7 months ago, not too long before COVID-19 started, I looked at Disney's The Rescuers. And during my blog, I did say that it was Disney's first success since Walt's death. Plus, I thought the story had some touching and humorous moments. While at the same time, there were some gunplay and child abuse. Also, the animation at the time was nice, but it was kind of dark due to the painting style. Anyway, after The Rescuers, Disney continued making animated movies in hopes to top it. But not all of them were as successful or as memorable. But then, in 1989, Disney released The Little Mermaid, which not only outgrew The Rescuers, but it also brought Disney into the Disney Renaissance. With new films on the way at the time, Disney came up with an idea for a Rescuers sequel, and that's what we're going to look at today.
By the way, we were originally going to be doing this in May, but COVID-19 made things really complicated and tough.
Anyway, let's get started, shall we?
Let's.
Released on November 16th, 1990, the movie is The Rescuers Down Under. So, let's get started. Cody, a 9-year-old boy from Mugwump Flats, Australia, has been kidnapped by a murderous poacher named Percival McLeach, who is after a giant golden eagle named Marahute, which is of a highly endangered species.
Soon, a distress call is sent to the Rescue Aid Society in New York City, and they assign their top agents Bernard and Bianca for the mission.
With transportation provided by the goofy albatross Wilbur, the agents arrive in Australia and link up with the RAS local field operative Jake, the kangaroo rat. Together, the trio must race against time to find Cody, stop McLeach, and save Marahute. So, what do we think about it? Well, in my opinion, this was an amazing sequel, but it was not one of my favorites until the later 90s.
As for me, this was one of the sequels that I enjoyed watching as a kid. While I didn't watch it as much as its predecessor, I remember how amazing it was.
However, while it was highly praised by critics and Disney fans, it sadly became a box office bomb. But fortunately, nowadays, The Rescuers Down Under has gained a strong cult following. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's move on to Mustang notes. Now, believe it or not, this movie was Walt Disney Animation's second animated sequel, the first being The Three Caballeros. Also, it is the very first feature film to be completely animated digitally by scanning their drawings and coloring them via computer, which was known as the CAP system.
Plus, the film uses CGI elements throughout several parts, like the field of flowers at the opening, McLeach's bushwhacker, and the scene where Wilbur is flying over New York and through the Sydney Opera House.
A team of over 415 artists and technicians were required for the production of the film. 5 members of the team took a trip to the Australian outback to observe, take photographs, and draw sketches to properly illustrate the outback on film. Nothing like that would ever happen again until pre-production of The Lion King 3 years later.
While this was the least successful animated film of the 90s, one of the critics who enjoyed it was the late Roger Ebert. who gave the film 3 stars. God bless him.
As for the animation, in my opinion, the digital hand-drawn animation was a vast improvement over the first movie, and I just love the look of the Australian outback. And there are some awesome action sequences, which nowadays make me think of Indiana Jones. Also, as I said in my Joey blog a few months ago, I would like to explore Australia in my future since I have a few friends and a couple family members who live there.
The environments are breathtaking, the character designs are high definition, plus the CGI mentioned earlier makes this movie stand out from most films at the time.
Also, the film features several interesting animals that are pretty common around Australia, like a koala, a couple kangaroos, a kookaburra, a few platypuses, crocodiles, cranes,
An echidna, a sugar glider, a python, a few fireflies, and a razorback boar.
However, if there's one scene that we don't like in this film too much, it's the scene where Wilbur is being operated in a broken down ambulance by a doctor and a few mouse nurses. Especially when they do a double barrel shotgun and shoot 120 milligrams of anesthetic, and when they pull out a chainsaw before operating on Wilbur's back. Yeah, tell me about it. Anyway, that's all we got for Mustang notes, so let's move on to the characters and their voice actors. Let's begin with the Rescue Aid Society's top agents, Bernard and Bianca, voiced again by Bob Newhart and the late Ava Gabor. To us, these two have great chemistry, and they still do a good job after 13 years.
Bianca is still as adventurous like in the first movie, but it's sad that this was Ava Gabor's last film role before her death in 1995.
As for Bernard, well, to us, he provides a more heroic role here. Plus, throughout this movie, like with Kristoff in Frozen 2, Bernard tries several attempts to propose to Bianca. By the way, we think it's not too much of a bad idea since both Bernard and Bianca make a nice couple together.
Very true.
Next is our first supporting character, Wilbur, voiced by the late, great John Candy, whom we may remember from Splash, Little Shop of Horrors, Spaceballs, and Sesame Street's Follow That Bird. Why did you have to die? Anyway, Wilbur is a goofy albatross who happens to be Orville's brother. Fun fact, the reason why Wilbur is in charge of Albatross Airlines is because during the past 13 years, between the first movie and the sequel, Jim Jordan not only retired, but also passed away. So, Roy E. Disney decided to give Orville a brother named Wilbur in honor of the Wright brothers. You know, that's actually kind of clever, don't you think, Daniel?
Oh, yeah.
Also, to us, Wilbur is a laid-back kind of character while having back problems.
Also, aside from being operated by mouse doctors, he's forced by Bernard to babysit Marijote's eggs.
Our next supporting character is Jake, a kangaroo mouse voiced by Tristan Rogers. To us, Jake is an awesome character, and he has the personalities of Steve Irwin and Crocodile Dundee.
Quite clever.
Also, Jake makes a great guide for Bernard and Bianca while they're in the outback. But at the same time, the scenes where Jake is flirting with Bianca makes him kind of a douche.
Sort of. Next is our main human character, Cody, voiced by Adam Ryan, who during the same year got to act in Child's Play 2.
Before he was kidnapped, Cody was a local hero to help protect and rescue captured animals in the outback. Also, like Penny from the first movie, Cody is able to talk with most animals. Not only that, but he's also an experienced climber. I mean, that's pretty impressive for a 9-year-old.
Pretty brave kid.
Next we come to Marahute, a golden eagle vocalized by Frank Welker. To us, while she doesn't have a major role in the movie, the scene where she takes Cody for a ride through the sky after she's freed from a poacher's trap was simply breathtaking. And that was 2 years before Aladdin.
Wow. Also, she shows Cody her nest and reveals that she's about to become a widowed mother due to her husband's death at the hands of McLeach sometime prior.
Speaking of which, next we come to our villain, Percival McLeach, a sinister poacher voiced by the late George C. Scott, who got to be in Patton, A Christmas Carol from 1984, and Oliver Twist from 1982. His main goal is to capture Marahute for a very high price on her. To us, in the beginning, McLeach was very cunning at covering his tracks by faking Cody's death by throwing his backpack into a crocodile-infested river,
as well as interrogating Cody by throwing knives at a map and trying to feed him to the crocodiles at the film's climax.
Next is McLeach's pet Joanna, also vocalized by Frank Welker. This oversized lizard enjoys intimidating her captives, and she has a very addicting fondness for eggs.
Speaking of which, there is a scene where she eats all of McLeach's eggs and somehow gives him an idea to use Marahute's eggs as Cody's weak spot in order to reveal where her nest is.
It's like they say, if a villain can't figure things out on her own, leave it to the sidekicks. Another character to talk about is Frank, a frill-necked lizard voiced by Wayne Robson, who got to be in One Magic Christmas, Pippi Longstocking from 1997, and the Anne of Green Gables series. Like Marahute, Frank doesn't have a big role since he's one of several animals that McLeach has captured.
Still to us, Frank is a very comical character, especially when supporting Cody while trying to escape, even when he had to hit the lock with his tail.
Man. And now for our final words. Overall, The Rescuers Down Under is a great sequel, and I find it to be a very far superior than the first movie. The animation is amazing. The main characters, Bernard and Bianca, are equally as memorable, and the score by Bruce Broughton is absolutely awesome.
Also, the voice acting is great, the action is thrilling, and has a good share of funny moments, and the villain McLeach is more threatening than Medusa.
So, whenever someone mentions the classical movies from the Disney Renaissance, be sure to point out this underrated movie. So together, we give this movie a full 100%. Well, that's all for now. I'd like to thank Daniel Guzman for collaborating with me today.
I'm glad to take the opportunity to blog with you, especially under this difficult time. And I also look forward to another future collaboration with you.
Me too, Daniel. As for the rest of you at home, be sure to join me next time. Mustang Power!